I never thought my grandfather's long-forgotten acre of land would bring me head-to-head with the most notorious HOA president in Maplewood Hills. But as I watched Denise Keller direct workers to install an ornate wrought iron fence through what she believed was community property, I knew I had the ultimate ace up my sleeve. I just needed to time it perfectly. "Make sure it's level, Rick!" she barked at one of the workers, her platinum blonde bob remaining perfectly still despite the gusty October wind. "This needs to be done by tomorrow's Halloween festival. The board has already approved the expenditure." I sipped my coffee from my porch, watching the show unfold from my modest ranch-style home at the edge of the subdivision. My property officially ended 20 feet before where they were working, or so everyone thought. That hidden acre, the one not on any recent surveys but legally mine according to a deed from 1962, was about to become the most valuable real estate in our neighborhood's history. The fence wasn't just any fence. It was Denise's grand vision for securing the neighborhood from undesirable foot traffic, a thinly veiled reference to the working-class neighborhood that bordered ours on the east side. The project would cost homeowners over $80,000 in special assessments, but Denise had pushed it through during a poorly attended Tuesday morning meeting when most residents were at work. I'm Ian Sullivan, retired Army veteran and current owner of a small landscaping business. When I moved to Maplewood Hills 3 years ago, I was looking for peace after 2 tours in Afghanistan. What I found instead was an HOA regime that made basic training look like a day at the spa. "Mr. Sullivan!" Denise's shrill voice pierced my tranquil morning. She marched toward my property line, clipboard clutched to her chest, her sensible heels digging into the soft earth. "I've been meaning to speak with you about your garden gnomes. They violate Section 12, Paragraph 3 of our community bylaws." I set my mug down. "Good morning to you too, Denise. I've read the bylaws. Garden ornaments under 18 inches are permitted as long as they're not visible from the street. Mine are behind my rose bushes." Her lips tightened into a thin line. "We've had complaints." "From whom?" "That's confidential HOA business." She glanced back at the fence installation. "I trust you received notice about the special assessment for our new security perimeter? Payment is due by the end of the month." I nodded pleasantly. "I got the notice. Very interesting project you've got going there." She didn't catch my choice of words. "It's for the good of the community, Mr. Sullivan. Property values must be maintained." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and please remove those unsightly vegetable beds from your backyard. Productive gardens are only permitted in rear-facing locations." "They are in the rear, Denise. Not from the golf course view, they aren't." She smiled, a predatory flash of professionally whitened teeth. "We must consider all angles of visibility in Maplewood Hills." As she walked away, I pulled out my phone and took another series of photographs of the fence installation. These would go nicely with the others I'd been collecting for months, documentation that would soon become very valuable. My neighbor Derek stuck his head over our shared fence. "Man, she's on the warpath today. When is she not?" I chuckled. "You paying that assessment?" he asked quietly. "Let's just say I've got a different kind of investment in mind." Derek raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. Smart man. What Derek didn't know, what nobody knew except my lawyer, was that 6 months ago, I had been sorting through my late grandfather's papers when I discovered something extraordinary. A properly filed deed to an acre of undeveloped land that bordered my property. The land had been purchased in 1962, before Maplewood Hills was even developed. When the subdivision was built in the 1980s, somehow that acre had been incorporated into the plans as common area, but the deed had never been properly transferred. Legally, it was still my family's property. And now mine by inheritance. And Denise Keller was building her precious fence right through the middle of it. I could have stopped the construction immediately, but a deeper instinct told me to wait. Denise had made enemies of nearly everyone in the neighborhood with her nitpicky enforcement of rules that seemed to apply to everyone but herself and her friends. Her massive fountain, installed last summer? Mysteriously exempt from the water feature restrictions. Her blindingly bright security lights, apparently not covered by the light pollution guidelines she cited to make Mrs. Abernathy remove her modest porch lanterns. The next morning, I was pruning my non-regulation roses when Olivia, who lived 3 doors down, stopped by, her face tight with worry. "Ian, did you see the latest email? They're increasing the monthly dues again to cover administrative costs for the fence project." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "By how much?" 30%. That's an extra $120 a month for me." She lowered her voice. "And I've heard rumors that Denise's husband's company is getting a consulting fee for the project, even though he's in pharmaceuticals and knows nothing about construction." "That's quite a coincidence," I said carefully, filing this information away. "Several of us are thinking about attending the next board meeting to protest, but honestly, the last time someone challenged Denise, they found themselves with violation notices every week for months." "What time is the meeting?" I asked. "Thursday at 7 p.m. Are you coming?" "I wouldn't miss it," I assured her. "In fact, I think it might be the most important meeting in Maplewood Hills history." Olivia looked curious but didn't ask what I meant. As she walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. "Documents ready. Stop by any time to sign." Perfect timing. Over the next few days, the fence installation progressed rapidly. Denise was often on site, directing workers and making last-minute design changes that would undoubtedly add to the already inflated budget. I continued taking photos and made a point to chat amiably with the workers, learning that they had been instructed to install a special gate with electronic access near Denise's home, a feature not included in the plans presented to homeowners. On Wednesday afternoon, I was working from home when a sharp knock interrupted my thoughts. Through the peephole, I recognized Marcus, the HOA's treasurer, looking uncomfortable on my porch. "Ian, got a minute?" he asked when I opened the door. I invited him in, curious. Marcus had always struck me as a decent guy trapped in Denise's orbit. "This is unofficial," he began, declining my offer of coffee. "But I'm concerned about some financial irregularities with the fence project. The contractor's billing doesn't match the approved budget, and there are payments going to a consulting company I can't trace." "Let me guess, Keller Max Consulting?" His eyes widened. "How did you know?" "Just a hunch. Denise's husband is Maxwell Keller, right? Pharmaceutical sales director who suddenly fancies himself a construction consultant?" Marcus nodded glumly. "I've tried questioning the expenses, but Denise says the board gave her executive authority to make decisions for expediency. I think she's funneling HOA funds to her family business." "Do you have documentation?" I asked. He hesitated, then slid a USB drive across my coffee table. "I never gave you this. And if asked, you never saw me today." After Marcus left, I plugged in the drive and whistled at what I found. Not only was Keller Max Consulting receiving a $15,000 project management fee, but the actual fence contractor was billing nearly double what had been approved, with the excess being diverted to another company, one registered to Denise's sister. The board meeting couldn't come soon enough. Thursday evening arrived with a larger-than-usual turnout for the HOA meeting. The community room at the clubhouse buzzed with tension as homeowners filed in, many clutching the recent assessment notices. Denise sat at the center of the board table, flanked by her loyal supporters and a visibly uncomfortable Marcus. "Let's bring this meeting to order," Denise announced, rapping her gavel unnecessarily loud. "First item of business, an update on our community security enhancement project." For the next 15 minutes, she detailed the tremendous progress on the fence, showing carefully selected photos that made it look like a resort entrance rather than the fortress it was becoming. No mention of the cost overruns or the special gate near her property. "Any questions before we move to the next agenda item?" she asked, her tone suggesting questions weren't actually welcome. Several hands shot up. Denise pointed to an elderly gentleman in the front row. "Harold, go ahead. I've been living here for 20 years, and I don't recall approving a $80,000 fence project. When was this voted on?" Denise's smile remained fixed. "The vote was taken at the March special session, Harold. It was properly noticed in the newsletter. That meeting was at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, called out someone from the back. Most of us were at work. The HOA bylaws don't specify meeting times, Denise replied smoothly. Now, if there are no further questions, I have a question, I said, standing up. All heads turned toward me. Denise's smile faltered slightly. Mr. Sullivan. Go ahead. I'm curious about the property survey for the fence placement. May I see it? She blinked. The survey? That's not really relevant to tonight's. Actually, it's extremely relevant, I interrupted. Especially since you're building on property that doesn't belong to the HOA. A murmur rippled through the room. Denise's face hardened. All common areas in Maplewood Hills belong to the association, Mr. Sullivan. That's clearly established in the community charter. I approached the board table and placed a folder in front of her. Except this particular acre was never deeded to the association. It's been privately owned since 1962. She glanced at the documents, her expression dismissive. These must be outdated. Our development plans clearly show the development plans were drawn up without proper title search, I said. The land was purchased by my grandfather, Franklin Sullivan, before this subdivision existed. It passed to my father, and then to me. I have the complete chain of title right here, certified by the county recorder's office yesterday. The room erupted in whispers. Marcus was examining the documents with growing alarm. This is preposterous, Denise sputtered. You can't just claim community property. I'm not claiming anything. I'm simply asserting my existing legal ownership. I turned to address the room. And as the rightful owner, I'm hereby denying permission for this fence project to continue on my land. Chaos broke out as homeowners began shouting questions. Denise pounded her gavel frantically. Order! Order! This is clearly a matter for our attorneys to review. In the meantime, the project will continue as planned. Actually, I said calmly, I've already filed an injunction this afternoon. Construction must cease immediately pending legal resolution. Her face flushed crimson. You had no right to do this behind the board's back. This is sabotage. Interesting choice of words, I replied, pulling out another folder. Speaking of things done behind backs, I have here documentation of some concerning financial arrangements regarding this fence project. Marcus went pale. Denise shot him a suspicious glance. What financial arrangements? Asked a board member I recognized as Denise's friend Patricia. I laid out copies of the documents Marcus had provided. The board approved $80,000 for this project, but the actual contracted amount is over $140,000. The difference, along with a generous consulting fee, is being paid to companies owned by Denise's family members. The room exploded again. Denise stood up, her hands shaking. These are baseless accusations. This meeting is adjourned. She grabbed her purse and made for the exit. One more thing, I called after her. The police have also been very interested in these documents. They'll be reaching out to you shortly. She froze at the door, then hurried out without looking back. The aftermath was both swift and satisfying. The fence construction halted the very next day. Within a week, Denise resigned from the board. For personal reasons. 2 weeks later, she and her husband were charged with fraud and misappropriation of funds. My phone rang constantly with neighbors wanting details, expressing gratitude, or simply sharing their own Denise horror stories. The most common question, what was I planning to do with my newly recognized acre? The answer came to me during a neighborhood gathering at Derek's house, where the conversation inevitably turned to the vacant HOA presidency. You should run, Ian, suggested Olivia. After exposing Denise, you're everyone's hero. I shook my head. I've got a better idea. The following weekend, I invited the entire neighborhood to my backyard for a presentation. Nearly everyone came, curious about my plans. First, I began, standing on a small platform I built for the occasion. I want to thank everyone for their support through this ordeal. What Denise did was wrong on many levels, but it highlighted something important. This community needs common areas that truly serve everyone's needs. I unveiled a large rendering of a landscape community garden and park. I'm proposing to donate my acre to the community, legally, properly, and transparently, on one condition: it becomes a shared garden and recreational space that can never be developed or fenced off. The proposal was met with enthusiastic applause and immediate support. Within a month, we had formed a new community association, separate from the HOA, to manage the space. The half-completed fence was dismantled, and the materials repurposed into garden beds and playground structures. Today, 3 months after that fateful board meeting, I'm sitting on a bench in what we now call Sullivan Community Garden, watching children play while their parents tend to vegetable plots and flower beds. The new HOA president, a thoughtful woman named Lucia who works as a civil engineer, has implemented transparent financial practices and reasonable bylaws focused on community well-being rather than rigid conformity. Denise and Maxwell Keller put their house up for sale shortly after their arrest. They're facing trial next month, and the evidence against them is substantial. The HOA insurance is covering the misappropriated funds, and everyone's assessment has returned to the original amount. Derek plops down beside me on the bench, offering a cold lemonade from the community refreshment stand we built last weekend. "You know," he says, "you could have sold this land for a fortune. Developer downtown was saying an acre in this neighborhood could fetch close to $1 million. I take a sip and smile. Some things are worth more than money. Like the look on Denise's face when you dropped that property deed on the table? He laughs. Exactly like that. I agree. But also this. I gesture to the thriving garden, the children's laughter, the neighbors chatting as they work side by side. My grandfather always said land should bring people together, not keep them apart. As the sun sets over Maplewood Hills, casting a golden glow across our community garden, I realize this is exactly what coming home should feel like. Not a fortress behind a fancy fence, but an open space where neighbors become friends, and even the most carefully laid schemes of HOA tyrants sometimes lead to unexpected happy endings. To fences that fall and gardens that rise, Derek says, raising his lemonade and toast. I clink my glass against his. And to property deeds hidden in attics, just waiting to be found.